Ladies and gentlemen, there's not much time left. You got to go through. You have to sell these players before this trade deadline goes through and locks them on your roster rest of season. So let's go through. Let's dive into some sell high running backs. So we'll be giving some suggestions of players we should be trading for as well. But before we get into it, go down there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. I'll try to get to as many as possible. We are this close to 150,000 subscribers, so it'd be awesome if you could go down there and subscribe. And of course, if you want to check out any of these player props, you can find the link to Underdog Fantasy down there in the comment section. When you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. Available in damn near every state. Honestly, my favorite prop of the week is going to be the Davante Adams more than 86.5 receiving yards, where if you look at the one flu game, throw it out. I mean, he's hit this pretty much every other week. But I think that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this list. Starting off with super brief, because I know you're not going to get a lot of value for these guys, but if we can sell them for anything, any starting running back in Baltimore. Oh, okay. So I know we have a lot of people that are pumped up about Kenyon Drake, a lot of people that are pumped up about Gus Edwards. In reality, I don't think you can start any of these guys. If we go back to look at what we had in week 9, you had Kenyon Drake, yes, dominating as a 3-down back. He plays 46 snaps compared to Justice Hill just at 17. But if we go back to what we had when all of these running backs were healthy, when we weren't having Gus Edwards leave a game early due to injury, when we had Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and Kenyon Drake all good to go in Baltimore, the last game we saw them, we had 23 snaps, 20 snaps, and 17 snaps for these running backs. Now, that was back in week 7, of course. So I know it's hard to remember what exactly the usage looks like for these guys, but I honestly don't think you're going to be able to start a single Baltimore Ravens running back. So if we can include any of them in a deal as a sweetener to go get an upgrade maybe somewhere else, like maybe you're trying to go ahead and sell Cortland Sutton and get back, I don't know, maybe Chris Godwin, and you have one of these Baltimore running backs, just dangle them out there as a little more a bait to get the deal done. But now going over to some running backs that actually have value. Let's look at someone that just dominated on Monday night, because I know you're going to hate me for saying this. Brian Robinson is, in my opinion, the easiest sell you're ever going to see. With Brian Robinson, he dominated. Washington dominated the Philadelphia Eagles. Brian Robinson had 26 carries, 86 rushing yards, and the rushing touchdown to go along with this. Now with Brian Robinson, we have to ask ourselves a few things. Has the situation changed? Is this now all of a sudden a good offense? Is he all of a sudden catching the football? I would say the situation really has not changed. This, in my opinion, is still a bad offense, and he is still not catching the football. If we go through and look at Brian Robinson so far this season, the man has 4 targets, 7 receptions all year long. Now, of course, he missed the beginning part of the year, but he's had 93 carries, okay? So Brian Robinson has played a ton. He will just never catch the ball. And he only has 2 touchdowns this season. No fault of his own, but it's because he's playing for the Washington Commanders. I mean, if we're looking at games that Brian Robinson has played in, the Commanders, 17 points, 12 points, 23 points, 17 points, 17 points. This past week, 32. So it is an extreme outlier. They were able to run the ball over 40 times. Please, for the love of God, we can take Brian Robinson and add a small piece to him, maybe someone like Kenyon Drake, and go get David Montgomery. I think that would be a much better play long term. But now going over to our next guy, someone in a very similar situation, because I want to talk about these guys together. They're great backs. I'm especially rooting for this one. D'Onta Foreman, hook 'em horns. You know, if you've stopped by any live stream this week, we've been telling everybody, you know what? We probably have to go through and sell D'Onta Foreman. I mean, Foreman coming off performance very similar to Brian Robinson. Phenomenal. A crap ton of volume. 31 carries, 130 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown in a game where the Carolina Panthers win. Like, oh my gosh, it's exciting. It's also on prime time. Hallelujah. The Panthers are back. No, they're not. They're not back. The Panthers are still going to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL, very similar to Washington. And I'm including these two players together because I think this is the perfect point of running backs being able to overcome very bad offenses if they can catch the ball. If you're Aaron Jones and you're stuck in a bad offense in Green Bay this year, you're fine. You're going to catch the ball. You're going to rack up receptions, receiving yards. You can get there. You can be a great fantasy option. But these running backs in a PPR format that don't catch the ball, Deontay Foreman had 0 receptions this past week. Over the past month, he's had 4. And you play in bad offenses, so red zone opportunities won't be consistently there. I don't really see a high ceiling with this player. I mean, I think it's going to be a very low floor, mediocre ceiling on a week-to-week basis. I am a former Texas Longhorn. Hook 'em horns. I'm rooting for Deontay Foreman, but in a PPR format, I do not want running backs in bad offenses that are not going to catch the ball. Very similar here with Deontay Foreman. If we can add a small piece to him and go get David Montgomery, someone that does get involved as a pass catcher, especially with the Khalil Herbert injury, I would like that. But now let's go and stick with this same trend. Let's go over and look at another bad offense with a running back that is also looking very good, but isn't catching the ball. Let's look at Dameon Pierce with the Houston Texans. Dameon Pierce has been phenomenal. Dameon Pierce 2 weeks ago on primetime against the Eagles, 139 rushing yards, 27 rushing attempts, putting the Houston Texans on his back, doing everything he can to win them this game. Did it mean anything for your fantasy team? No. Why is that? Well, in a PPR format, when he has 0 receptions for 0 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns because the Houston Texans are a dumpster fire, it's not his fault he's stuck in Houston. Where's the touchdown upside? Where are the high value touches? In reality, they're just non-existent. Against the Giants here, I mean, very similar situation. He puts the team on his back. They only score 16 points. They probably would have scored fewer than that if it wasn't for Dameon Pierce. He has 94 rushing yards, 28 receiving yards. But at the end of the day, he gives you 13, 14 fantasy points, which is just not getting the job done. If you look at how a lot of people view Dameon Pierce, they view him as that low-end RB1, mid RB1. People were mad at me for ranking him, I believe, as the running back 13 this week. I'm sorry. I just don't like running backs in bad offenses that don't catch the ball. If we can go sell Dameon Pierce and get James Conner in a wide receiver upgrade, like, hell yes, I'll do that. Go give me a running back in a better offense, catching the football, even if that running back himself is a little bit worse. Now let's go over and look at a running back that, in my opinion, is still going to be a high-end RB2, even if people want to project that he is a low-end RB1 going forward. Ramondre Stevenson. Now, Ramondre's in a better offense. Ramondre Stevenson, you know that he is going to catch the ball. Ramondre Stevenson has been phenomenal so far this year. I mean, if you're looking at giving out some best value picks of the year, at least in best ball, oh my gosh, Ramondre Stevenson has been phenomenal. He has been a league winner up until this point. But what has also happened? Damien Harris has missed a decent amount of time. Now, y'all know I've never been a Damien Harris fanboy. I've never said to go out there and draft Damien Harris over the past 2 years. We've been saying to take Stevenson instead. Now, if we are looking at the usage for Ramondre Stevenson with and without Damien Harris, the last time we saw Damien Harris play here an entire game was week 8. And in that contest, Damien Harris had 39 snaps compared to Ramondre Stevenson at 49. Whereas if you're looking at the percentage of snaps that you're getting with Ramondre Stevenson with no Damien Harris, it's just getting jacked way the hell up. He had 46 snaps compared to JJ Taylor only at 17 the week after. So with Damien Harris, it does look like he's going to be coming back. With Ramondre Stevenson, I still think that he is a high-end RB2, but hell, we've been able to tell people for the past few weeks to sell Ramondre Stevenson for Jonathan Taylor. That was a trade people were getting done. That was a trade people were telling me that it was not smart to make. But yeah, I think if you can sell at a price point for a running back that does have, in my opinion, top 5 running back upside, that'd make a lot of sense. Now, after this past week, I don't think you're going to be able to sell him for Jonathan Taylor anymore. Maybe you can still sell him for JT if the owner's not a believer, but you would have to add something. Okay. But now let's go over and let's look at a running back that's also going to have someone join his backfield, Tony Pollard. Pollard has been unbelievable. Like, to everybody who's been saying over the past few seasons that Tony Pollard's a better running back than Ezekiel Elliott, I have been hesitant to join your crowd. Now, I have seen Tony Pollard averaging more yards per carry every single year than Ezekiel Elliott since he came into the NFL. I've seen Tony Pollard getting more and more carries per game, more and more snaps per game, more and more receptions per game every single year of his NFL career. You've seen that trend line of Pollard coming up. I was still saying Ezekiel Elliott was probably better than Pollard straight up. Of course, value is a little bit of a different story. I flip. I will 100% admit that no, it's not that Ezekiel Elliott faces more stacked boxes. He faces early down scenarios, and that's why he's a less efficient running back than Tony Pollard. I'm willing to say that as a rusher, Pollard's a better player at this point. And while I'm willing to say that, I think my opinion does not matter in the slightest. I am just a clown with the microphone. I am just an idiot here. You know who's a clown that owns a football team? Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, that's an individual that actually has some say. That's an individual that actually gets to pull some strings here. And based on everything he has told us so far, it sounds like Jerry Jones is paying Ezekiel Elliott a lot of money. Ezekiel Elliott needs to sell some damn jerseys. Ezekiel Elliott needs to be on the football field. It sucks that this is the case. I know a lot of people want to say, oh, well, Mason, no, it's Ezekiel Elliott's a better blocker. Are we sure? The 2 games we've had with no Ezekiel Elliott, we've had 49 and 28 points scored by the Dallas Cowboys. Tony Pollard, 115 rushing yards so far. I mean, this past week, I don't know. I wish Pollard would be the starter here in Dallas the rest of the season. It's just not going to happen. But now going over and looking at another backup running back that people are thinking is going to have that expanded role. Looking at Elijah Mitchell, a running back that, yes, this past week looked like maybe he will be startable for you going forward. He had 18 carries. He had 89 rushing yards. His first week back in, this is compared to a fully healthy Christian McCaffrey with only 38 rushing yards. I mean, you had 89 rushing yards for Elijah Mitchell. You only had 38 for CMC. Mitchell having more touches as well. Now, of course, everybody knows that CMC is the running back 1 here. I'm not trying to go, oh, okay, let's sell Elijah Mitchell for Christian McCaffrey. No, of course, I know you're not going to be able to do that. But I honestly don't even know if Elijah Mitchell is going to be startable for you going forward. Well, yes, I think that he is going to get touches on a week-to-week basis. If we were looking at his involvement as a pass catcher, I think that will be non-existent. I think that you are going to have Christian McCaffrey getting every single target out of this backfield. If we look at the involvement from Elijah Mitchell as a pass catcher this past week, he ran 5 routes. Elijah Mitchell ran 5 routes. And if we're looking at the underlying snaps, Elijah Mitchell played 24 snaps compared to Christian McCaffrey at 47. Now, Elijah Mitchell benefited from the game getting out of hand at the very end. He was able to go out there. He was able to rack up some meaningless touches. I'd imagine this is Kyle Shanahan trying to preserve the health of Christian McCaffrey. I'd still want to say Elijah Mitchell's going to have a role here, but I think that role will be about 30 to 40% of this backfield, and it will never come in the form of the passing down game, which is what is going to be the most important thing here. Christian McCaffrey was the guy used in the red zone outside of the very end of the game when it was already out of hand. So I think Elijah Mitchell honestly still falls in line with someone like Alexander Mattison, someone like A.J. Dillon, someone like Kareem Hunt, where maybe you're never excited to play them on a week-to-week basis. You could go ahead, you could start them in a pinch if you just needed a running back to throw in there, if you were decimated with injuries. But the majority of where his value comes from is just the what-if game. The what if Christian McCaffrey were to go down in front of him. And then at that point, he would look like a league-winning running back. But based on what I've been seeing from a lot of people, it sounds like people are valuing Elijah Mitchell significantly ahead of a player like A.J. Dillon, where I think that's maybe the perfect comparison for him, where maybe if we could go ahead and move Elijah Mitchell for A.J. Dillon and get a wide receiver upgrade as well, that would be great. But I think that's all I got for you. Of course, thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy fantasy football. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the comment section. We have all these player props available on Underdog Fantasy with a link in that comment section. Promo code FLOCK. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. My favorite line will be the Devontae Adams line there at 86.5 receiving yards. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you out in the live stream tonight.